It's a mistake to blame high gasoline and oil prices on price gouging. If we impose new taxes or fixed prices while ignoring monetary inflation, corporate subsidies, and excessive regulations, shortages will result. The market is the only way to determine the best price for any commodity. The law of supply and demand cannot be repealed. The real problems arise when government planners give subsidies to energy companies and favor one form of energy over another. Energy prices are rising for many reasons. Inflation, increased demand from China and India, decreased supply resulting from our invasion of Iraq, anticipated disruption of supplies as we push regime change in Iran, regulatory restrictions on gasoline production, government interference in the free market development of alternative fuels, and subsidies to big oil such as free leases and grants for research and development. Interestingly, the cost of oil and gas is actually much higher than we pay at the retail level. Much of the DoD budget is spent protecting our oil supplies, and if such spending is factored in, gasoline probably costs us more than $5 a gallon. The sad irony is that the military effort to secure cheap oil supplies inevitably backfires and actually curtails supply and boosts prices at the pump. The waste and fraud in issuing contracts to large corporations for work in Iraq only adds to price increase. When problems arise under conditions that exist today, it's a serious error to blame the little bit of the free market that still functions. Last summer, the market worked efficiently after Katrina. Gasoline hit $3 a gallon, but soon supplies increased, usage went down, and the price returned to $2. In the 1980s, market forces took oil from $40 a barrel down to $10 a barrel, and no one cried for the oil companies that went bankrupt. Today's increases are for the reasons mentioned above. It's natural for labor to seek its highest wage and businesses to strive for the greatest profits. That's the way the market works. When the free market is allowed to work, it's the consumer who ultimately determines price and quality, with labor and businesses accommodating consumer choices. Once this process is distorted by government, prices rise excessively, labor costs and profits are negatively affected, and problems emerge. Instead of fixing the problem, politicians and demagogues respond by demanding windfall profits taxes and price controls while never questioning how previous government interference caused the whole mess in the first place. Never let it be said that higher oil prices and profits cause inflation. Inflation of the money supply causes higher prices. Since keeping interest rates below market levels is synonymous with new money creation by the Fed, the resulting business cycle, higher cost of living, and job losses all can be laid at the doorstep of the Fed. This burden hits the poor the most, making Fed taxation by inflation the worst of all regressive taxes. Statistics about revenues generated by the income tax are grossly misleading. In reality, much harm is done by our welfare warfare system supposedly designed to help the poor and tax the rich. Only sound money can rectify the blatant injustice of this destructive system. The founders understood this great danger and voted overwhelmingly to reject emitting bills of credit, the term they used for paper money or fiat currency. It's too bad the knowledge and advice of our founders and their mandate in the Constitution are ignored, and it is ignored at great peril. The current surge in gold prices, which reflects our dollar devaluation, is warning us to pay closer attention to our fiscal, monetary, entitlement, and foreign policy. A recent headline in the financial press announced that gold prices surged over concern that confrontation with Iran will further push oil prices higher. This may well reflect the current situation, but higher gold prices mainly reflect monetary expansion by the Federal Reserve. Dwelling on current events and their effect on gold prices reflects concern for symptoms rather than an understanding of the actual cause of these price increases. Without an enormous increase in the money supply over the past 35 years and a worldwide paper monetary system, this increase in the price of gold would not have occurred. Certainly, geopolitical events in the Middle East under a gold standard would not alter its price, though they could affect the supply of oil and cause oil prices to rise. Only under conditions created by excessive paper money would one expect all or most prices to rise. This is a mere reflection of the devaluation of the dollar. Here are a few particular things that we should remember. If one endorses small government and maximum liberty, one must support commodity money. One of the strongest restraints against unnecessary war is a gold standard. Deficit financing by government is severely restricted by sound money. The harmful effects of the business cycle are virtually eliminated with an honest gold standard. Saving and thrift are encouraged by gold standard and discouraged by paper money. Price inflation, with generally rising price levels, is characteristic of paper money. Reports that the Consumer Price Index and the Producer Price Index are rising are distractions. The real cause of inflation is the Fed's creation of new money. Interest rate manipulation by central banks help the rich, the banks, the government, and the politicians. Paper money permits the regressive inflation tax to be passed off on the poor and the middle class. Paper money encourages economic and political chaos, which subsequently causes a search for scapegoats rather than blaming the central bank. Dangerous protectionist measures frequently are implemented to compensate for the dislocations caused by paper money. Paper money, inflation, and the conditions they create contribute to the problems of illegal immigration. The value of gold is remarkably stable. The dollar price of gold reflects dollar depreciation. Holding gold helps preserve and store wealth, but technically, gold is not a true investment. Since 2001, the dollar has been devalued by over 60%. But in 1934, FDR devalued the dollar by 41%. In 1971, Nixon devalued the dollar by 7.9%. In 1973, Nixon devalued the dollar by 10%. These were momentous monetary events, and every knowledgeable person worldwide paid close attention. Major changes were endured in 1979 and 1980 to save the dollar from disintegration. This involved a severe recession, interest rates over 21%, and general price inflation of 15%. Today, we face a 60% devaluation and counting, yet no one seems to care. It's of greater significance than the three events mentioned above. And yet, the one measurement that best reflects the degree of inflation, the Fed and our government denies us. Since March, M3 reporting has been discontinued. For starters, I'd like to see Congress demand that this report be resumed. I fully believe the American people and Congress are entitled to this information. Will we one day complain about false intelligence as we have with the Iraq War? Will we complain about not having enough information to address monetary policy after it's too late? If ever there was a time to get a handle on what sound money is and what it means, that time is today. Inflation, as exposed by high gold prices, transfers wealth from the middle class to the rich as real wages decline while the salaries of CEOs, movie stars, and athletes skyrocket, along with the profits of the military-industrial complex, the oil industry, and other special interests. A sharply rising gold price is a vote of no confidence in the Congress's ability to control the budget, the Fed's ability to control the money supply, and the administration's ability to bring stability to the Middle East. Unfortunately, the gold price is a measurement, ultimately, the gold price is a measurement of trust in the currency and the politicians who run the country. It's been that way for a long time, and it's not about to change. If we care about the financial system, the tax system, and the monumental debt we're accumulating, we must start talking about the benefits and discipline that come only with a commodity standard of money. Money the government and central banks absolutely cannot create out of thin air. Economic law dictates reform at some point, But should we wait until the dollar is 1/1000th of an ounce of gold or 1/2000th of an ounce of gold? The longer we wait, the more people suffer and the more difficult reforms become. Runaway inflation inevitably leads to political chaos, something numerous countries have suffered throughout the 20th century. The worst example, of course, was the German inflation of the 1920s that led to the rise of Hitler. Even the communist takeover of China was associated with runaway inflation brought on by the Chinese nationalists. The time for action is now, and it's up to the American people and the U.S. Congress to demand it. And, Madam Speaker, I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields back the balance of his time. Under the Speaker's announced policy of January 4, 2005, the Chair recognizes the gentleman from Florida, Mr. Meek, for the remaining time until midnight.